Oh god, there's so much to do. We have so much to get ready. Did you get this reset up? Hey there, folks. Sorry, we don't have much time here today. We have to get ready for the big holiday. Hyder says it's not real, but I've celebrated a few times now. How could it not be real? That's like saying you're not real and you're... Okay, well, you're a camera, but damn it, that doesn't matter right now. This day comes once a decade. It's important we enjoy it. It's Pikmin, everybody. What's that, I hear you ask? Well, Pikmin is a special holiday to commemorate the jolly old man himself, St. Olaclaus, coming back from his space hibernation to deliver the good boys and girls of the world a copy of the new Pikmin game. Pikmin 4 is coming any day now, and I cannot wait to play it. I just hope he remembers us this time. He usually does, but I am a bit out of the way for most people. I remember when Hey Pikmin came out, I left a big plate of carrots and Duracell batteries, but he never showed up. I slept for like 4 days just to make sure, but all I got out of that was muscular atrophy. I really hope he doesn't forget me this time. Oh, I know! While Hyder finishes putting up the tree, I'll play the original Pikmin to show Olaclaus that I still believe in the magic of Pikmis. If I can just relay the message up there somehow, he'll come for sure! Let's do it. Let's bring Pikmis cheer to the island. Pikmin has been near and dear to my heart for as long as I've had consciousness. From the moment I was old enough to play games, I've been playing Pikmin. The series of strategy games where you play as the worst pilots in space exploration history, doing everything they can to ransack PNF 404 for all it's worth. Accompanying you are the Pikmin, a collective species of plant animals that each have their own merits and all want to do everything in their power to help you on your mission. I won't even waste time with pretenses. I love each of the main entries to this series. Each and every game here is excellent in its own way, and while I'd love to cover all of them now, if I'm gonna get everything set before Pikmis, we're gonna have to just look at the first one. But hey, if I'm gonna be gushing about one of my favorite series, I may as well put some extra effort in. Let's take a moment to talk about how Pikmin came to be, and it doesn't actually all start with the Red Man himself. So, Mario 128 was a tech demo that was shown off at Space World 2000, featuring, how many was it? Anyways, a whole bajillion of that little bastard is running around making a mess, killing each other, basically just showing off how strong the upcoming GameCube could be. It's often labeled as being what would eventually become Pikmin, but making this spaceman with a fat ass couldn't have been done by one plumber alone. Or 100 of them either. At the same time, Nintendo was experimenting with an untitled god game where you looked after creatures named Adam and Eve, and according to the Pikmin wiki at least, Nintendo thought it was so boring they just said, "Can you try putting some weird little plant goblins in?" Or, you know, they could have just invalidated all of what I just said by releasing new concept art and a new interview on Pikmin 1's development. They could do that too. And thus, by the power of God and Mario, as all good things are created, Pikmin was born. Development afterwards went pretty smoothly, ultimately releasing shortly after the launch of the GameCube in 2001. The game would sell well over 1 million copies and be adored by critics. Was it worth it? Well, George sure liked it enough just to make stuff up. The 7 years after he pressed send must have been the coldest of his life. Let's set the scene. Space. Captain Olimar, a space traveler, is flying through the empty vacuum in his beloved SS Dolphin until he gets struck by a meteorite and is sent hurtling to the planet below. Despite surviving the fall, he's far from saved. His ship is in tatters, and with only 30 days until its life support gives out and the poisonous oxygen consumes him, hope is fading fast. I mean, even if we were to find his ship's parts, how would we even get them back to the ship? No one man could ever... A plant? It sure sprung to life with intensity. And why did the seed sprout so quickly? I mean, I guess gathering some food would be nice. It does not stop getting stranger today. This is a Pikmin, a red one to be precise. He's immune to fire and his attacks do 1.5 times the damage of other types. They'll be the workhorses of the group, but for now we need to amass numbers. Much like in real life, being short is a death sentence when you're not in a pack, and we're being attacked by the mightiest predator, a cardboard box. So how do we even begin to get more Pikmin? Well, Olimar can grab Pikmin with the A button and throw them wherever your cursor is pointing at, allowing you to put them to work collecting items and attacking enemies to accomplish your goals. You can also use the C-stick as a simpler way to get a horde to all rush onto a target faster. To recollect them, you simply press B to whistle, and we can also disband all of our Pikmin from our command with X. A very simple control scheme, but as I hope to show as we continue, it feels great. Throwing Pikmin is snappy, and watching masses all get to work as you command them feels incredibly gratifying. And if anyone's not doing what they're supposed to, you just hit them with a... God, that sound never gets old. A couple of the massive Pikmin going... It just hits my brain in all the right spots. It's a basic control scheme for what amounts to a pretty fundamental strategy game, but it all feels so good. They nailed handling troops on the first try, and every game after would change very little about this control scheme due to that, with, you know, the one exception we'll get to later. For the first day, we just need to get our numbers up in order to move this box and explore the impact site more. A few pellets and a lot of plucks later, we conquer that cardboard cretin and find our engine. And wouldn't you know it, the Pikmin are even smart enough to carry it to the dolphin instead of their hive, the onion. We're able to lift off the surface of the planet, but well, we're still kinda missing most of our ship. Honestly, I'm not even convinced we have the fuel lines to connect to the engine. I think we're just kinda operating on prayers here. We may have the means to fly off the ground, but if we want to leave this planet, we have to find the remaining ship parts. Thankfully, the Pikmin we found today seem to want us out of here as bad as we do, and follow us from area to area in an effort to get us back home to Planet Hokatare. The first day at the impact site is a really nice tutorial. While you haven't experienced combat yet, this day gives you as much time as you need to get acclimated to the controls and understand some of the basic characteristics of Pikmin. They're mightier in groups, are able to take on a plethora of tasks, and the more you put onto an object, the quicker that thing will get to its destination. It shows you everything you need to know about how to handle tasks without forcing much danger on you. Yep, there's nothing quite like cooperating to get stuff done faster. And now, on day 2 in the Forest of Hope, we truly begin our efforts. As I've alluded to a few times now, Pikmin is a series of strategy games. Each in-game day gives you a limited time frame to use your Pikmin to accomplish as much as possible. Whether it's building up your ranks, fighting enemies, clearing paths, or collecting ship parts, you're working with a squad of up to 100 Pikmin to get as much done as possible before night falls and the more dangerous creatures of the planet come out to play. It's a formula that none of the main games drastically step away from, and for good reason. This gameplay loop feels outstanding. Everything you do feeds into the next step of your day, and each of the areas after the impact site gives you a lot of freedom in handling them however you see fit. By handling enemies, you just gave yourself even more Pikmin to work with in case your ranks begin to dwindle, and if that was a boss, there's a good chance you just got a ship part out of it too, which means that you're also one step closer to getting home. On your first day in a new area, you're probably spending more time scoping the area out than making progress on the dolphin, but in doing so, you're also likely breaking down barriers and eliminating enemies that will make the job of collecting your ship parts much easier the next day. It all flows so well and makes strategizing at the beginning of each day a blast to do. Once you get a feel for how long you'll have in a given day, you really find yourself trying to push the limits to get as much done as possible. This is also in part thanks to the game's other time limit. Kinda? That life support ain't lying. We have 30 days to find all 30 parts of the ship, which means if we can keep a pace of 1 a day, we should have no problems at all getting home in time. You will not have any problems getting home in time. This time limit thing is something I see brought up a lot in Pikmin discourse on whether it's like bad or not. I don't have a strong lean one way or the other on if Pikmin needs a time limit, but I think part of it is because I don't think that the games that have one really feel like they do either. If it's like your absolute first experience with Pikmin, I can maybe see how you could end up spending like 22, maybe 23 days to get everything done. But for me, I've played all of these games so many times, and while I'm not amazing at them still, I rarely take more than half the available time to wrap it all up in the first game. It's not a bad addition, but it is very forgiving. But if nothing else, it certainly incentivizes working as quickly as possible to avoid Olimar dying. That counts for something. My time limit apathy isn't saying Pikmin is the easiest game around though. These games will all pop you in the jaw if you aren't being sharp with your management. The wildlife all has it out for your little stemmed friends. Enemy variety in every area is wonderful, from bulborbs and bulbears to sheer grubs and wigs, to even bosses like the burrowing snagret and beady longlegs. Enemies are threatening while also allowing you an opportunity to really throw around some power. Just piling on red Pikmin and watching health bars shred is so satisfying, especially on a boss. God, it just feels so good to witness. Some enemies are a bit too tough for us right now, just these landlubbers though. There are a lot of aquatic enemies like wollywogs and water dumples that the Reds simply can't contend with, and something like the beady longlegs is a little high up to comfortably hit with Reds reliably. Thankfully, red Pikmin don't have to go it alone against the wildlife. Not far into our expedition of the Forest of Hope, we stumble upon another onion, and within it we find yellow Pikmin. I bet they can do all kinds of cool things the reds definitely can't. Yellow Pikmin are odd. Yellows will get better in later games, but for now let's go over their unique attributes. Yellows can be thrown a bit higher, and they can pick up bomb rocks, explosives that can blow up certain gates and also be used in combat, but don't do that unless you like risking blowing up all of your Pikmin. That's all they really have going for them. You may be thinking to yourself, I really feel like you forgot to mention something, but not in Pikmin 1 I didn't. Both of the other types have elemental bonuses, with fire and water being rendered powerless against them. Meanwhile, there is no electricity in the first Pikmin, so yellows are essentially stuck as a situational type that you never want more than 20 of at any point. Essentially, they're needed to knock down stone walls at the start of an area, and then for about, generously 10 treasures in the entire game? Realistically, it's probably closer to like 7, but if we factor in stone walls, we at least can make it look better. It's a little awkward, but there are thankfully enough bomb rock gates and high up ship parts. The yellows aren't completely useless, just largely outclassed. But fear not, for it's time to start a new day. We can put our new yellows to work clearing out all the roadblocks in the forest and getting some goodies collected. While I've taken care of that, I'd also like to take some time to talk about the music in this game. Composed by Hajime Wakai, this man created such an amazing soundtrack that sets the mood exquisitely well. It's somewhat atmospheric, it can be melancholy, but it can also be incredibly joyful. Each of the main area themes are amazing no matter how many times they loop, which is a good thing since you'll be hearing a lot of them. It's hard to pick my favorites out of the ensemble, but if I had to give you a top 5, I'd actually just give you a full ranking. The way that the final trial theme has the upbeat parts in the left audio channel, and the reminder of impending doom in the right, the same way that the map itself is laid out, man, that's good design. The Forest of Hope is probably the most iconic song from the entire series, and of course the best way to end any long day of work. I love this track. It's technically 2, but if you try to play the technicality game with me again, you're getting fed to this Bulborb too. The way that the end of day plays out is another thing that stayed largely untouched, and for good reason. The way that Olimar gathers himself before signaling the troops to return to their onion, beams himself to his ship, and then the ship begins to take off right as the music reaches its peak, it's all so delightful. And then, as everyone makes it off the planet just in time, you're met with that melancholy but oddly hopeful buzz as Olimar journals about his life or the state of his mission. This is my favorite song in the entire series. I could listen to this track for ages, which is great because it isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Such great music from top to bottom, and incredibly, this is my least favorite soundtrack from the series. It's through no fault of this game, it's just that every Pikmin game has amazing music. Someone has to be at the bottom. Oh yeah, while you were paying attention to the masterclass performed by a man who kinda dresses like a janitor, we actually got together enough parts to go to the next area, the Forest Navel. While the Forest of Hope had a couple spots of water, this place has water all over the place, with a decent chunk of the ship parts being found within. And as you may have noticed, neither of our Pikmin types can really tackle such a task, but I'm sure we'll find a solution somewhere. Well, would you look at that. We also have blue Pikmin, natural-born swimmers that have no problem traversing water. They're not only the go-to for aquatic treasures, but also to handle any combat with waterborne creatures like the classic Wollywogs and Water Dimples. You can never go wrong with making more blue Pikmin. They're easily the most versatile type in the game, being able to go basically anywhere and fight anything but the most fiery of enemies with ease. A real class of winners that give red Pikmin a run for their money and usefulness. Unlike a certain somebody. Well, now that we have every Pikmin type in existence, we can get to work with even more efficiency. With an even mix of reds, blues, and like 10 yellows, we can tackle pretty much everything in every area if we have the wherewithal to handle it. From here on out, pretty much every day can be boiled down to developing a route and trying to collect as many treasures as possible. It's really satisfying finding ways to acquire as many ship parts as possible and seeing the ship get progressively better throughout a day. Seeing the SS Dolphin start out so utterly decrepit and evolving back to its pristine majesty over the course of the game is a rewarding feeling. This ship is unbelievably charming. It's easy to see why Olimar values it as highly as he does. On that note, what a character Olimar is. He may be all business when he's commanding the Pikmin, but his personality shines so brightly anytime he monologues. This man is quite literally a space himbo. He loves his ship, his family, and clearly has a lot of intelligence due to how quickly he understands how to command the Pikmin. Some of the time, though, he's the dumbest man alive. Like, yeah, he knows how his Ionium jets work, he understands that his eternal fuel dynamo is somehow an unlimited energy source, but then there's something like his musings on the extraordinary bolt.
It's the extraordinary bolt. I bought this incredible bolt because the salesman told me it is of extraordinary quality that is indiscernible to the average person. Exactly what makes it so extraordinary is a secret, but just look at it. Extraordinary.
Or perhaps his thoughts on his positron generator.
I found the positron generator. By combining its batteries with solar cells, this machine can generate incredible amounts of electricity. What a timely find. Those instant space noodles will taste better when heated up.
For as much work as it must have taken for Olimar to become a spaceman, even he can enjoy the little things like ramen or getting scammed by a con man. His design is also super good. Between his big, bulbous nose, his wacky antenna, and a dump truck so massive that even Times Square had to stop and stare for a little, he just radiates such a charming energy that, coupled with his everyman personality, makes you want to get him home just because of how lovable he is. As I've repeated several times throughout this review, Olimar is a mainstay of this franchise for a reason. He's incredibly likable and gets even better if you take the time to listen to him. Oops, did you spend all that time listening to me again? Well, good job, buddy. While you stop paying attention again, we unlock the last major area, the Distant Spring. Yeah, the last area. The game has 5 levels, but the impact site is a tutorial with an additional treasure to go back for, and the final area, which we haven't unlocked yet, is just a place for the final boss. But we'll talk more about that when we get there. That means the bulk of your time is spent in 3 locales, which to the game's credit, all 3 are pretty good. The Forest of Hope is a really good, true introduction to the series, with enemy variety that gives you time to get accustomed to the combative side of things without risking too many Pikmin, and simple versions of every major obstacle you'll have to handle in the future. There's a couple bosses in this area, namely the 3 burrowing snagrets and the armored cannon beetle, but you only ever have to fight one of them and can relatively safely avoid the rest. It helps to show that there will be challenging enemies in your future, but if you're not comfortable with fighting them, the game won't force you too heavily just yet. The Forest Navel is a tricky one for me. It has a lot of ways to shorten the route back to base by blowing away the stone walls and building the ramps, but because so much of the area is based on the hill to get back to your base, a lot of the treasures are along the edge of the map, and for me, I often find it better to just prioritize getting those treasures to the base over wasting time knocking down extra walls to shorten the route back. It also makes some areas feel a little underutilized, like how there's this really pretty mushroom zone that I was in for maybe 2 minutes tops the entire time I was in the Navel. Enemy variety is also a bit tougher now, with bigger gatherings of the sheer type bugs as well as enemies that ask you to have a bit more elemental awareness, with the waterbound wallywogs and firebound fiery blowhogs dotted around to impede your progress. There's 2 bosses in this area too. There's the Puffstool, this adorable guy who goes down with really little resistance, sorry buddy. And there's also one of the few times yellow Pikmin are useful in combat, the Beady Longlegs. The only part of him that's susceptible to damage is his core that's high above Olimar. While you can use other types, it's much easier to use the 20 yellows you've grown accustomed to having while you try to avoid its stomping attacks. The way that you're essentially rewarded for not bringing 100 Pikmin into the arena is super clever. This fight isn't about showing off, it's about making the most of your numbers to maximize damage while not risking a whole battalion under its feet. This is a genuinely fun fight, and one of my favorite fights in the entire game. You gotta root for the little guy in a moment like this. Just you wait, buddy, you'll get to shine soon enough. And then of course, the Distant Spring. This place has the most ship parts of any stage, with some requiring minor but fun puzzles to retrieve. There's one where you have to transform blues into yellows to retrieve a ship piece and then change them back to finish the escort. Another one I remember pretty vividly is the part where you have to navigate a narrow ledge to retrieve the part at the end. If there's anything negative I can say about this area is that it does have a bit of a blue dependence. The majority of ship parts require you to either retrieve them from the water or going through a bit of water to open the path to base. There's a piece or two that yellows and reds are required for, but it's largely a blue-centric affair here. This area's enemies are definitely the toughest, with stronger wallywogs and the bullbears. These black and red bulborbs are ferocious and oh, I never actually had one wake up to fight me. I always killed them before they got a chance to fight back. Well, wait till Pikmin 2. They're tough, I swear, just not here. Anyway, the bosses here are another armored cannon beetle that you now have to fight to finish the area, and a boss that's completely optional but infamous. The Smoky Prog. This thing is fast on its feet and has a trail of poison that will instantly kill any Pikmin that comes into contact with it. To make matters worse, the Prog makes a mad dash to your base to try to prevent you from getting more Pikmin out. It's tough, and it will wipe your forces out with no mercy, but if you beat it, you get a seed that grants you 100 Pikmin of whatever type you choose. And considering that future games have a Pikmin that's immune to poison, it's very amusing that the Prog has only appeared in this game. The Distant String is my personal favorite area. From the presentation to the level design, it really just has everything that I would look for in a Pikmin level. That's a point that I somehow avoided this entire time. The game's visuals are still nice. Despite using realistic environments, I'd say the game has aged pretty well visually. Due to the stature of the entire cast, the areas give me cozy feelings that remind me of like miniature sets, especially with the enemies and parts feeling like little toys dotted around the area. This was one of the first games on the system, and I think it's still one of the GameCube's prettiest games. Oh, would you look at that? It looks like you noticed this time. We've gotten 29 of the 30 ship parts. It's time for one last, what's the word? Oh, yeah, one last objective. Son of a bitch, he's so good at naming these. The final trial is an alright last test of your knowledge, requiring you to use all 3 types properly to unlock the arena to the true final boss. One interesting thing about all this is that this part is completely optional. We could just leave now and already be finished with the game. But then again, if we did, what have we accomplished? We may be able to take our ship and our life and get back home, but we merely come home a survivor. We could leave one final mark on this land. We could leave a conqueror, a usurper, a brand new emperor. This is Emperor Bullblax, a big old bastard who's far stronger than anything else we've tackled thus far. That wasn't the Smoky Prog, of course. His health bar is as gargantuan as he is, he's only vulnerable in a few spots, and all of his attacks can wipe out an unlimited number of Pikmin. But hey, how bad could it be? I do not like this fight. I'm not sure this is a very popular opinion, but man, I just don't like Bullblax in Pikmin 1. It may be a slight bit of a Dandori issue, but to me this fight is just not particularly fun. The main strategy, to my perception anyway, is to utilize yellow Pikmin to pick up the bomb rocks on the outside of the arena and have him eat the bombs to stun him. Then, you're supposed to go in and wail on him with the rest of your army. My problem with this is that Pikmin 1 lacks one of the nicest quality of life upgrades of later games. You can't switch what type of Pikmin you're carrying on the fly. This means you either have to bring a bunch of bombs into the arena all at once in order to maybe pick one up easier at the risk of Bullblax doing something to completely botch the run, or you have to painstakingly pick up one yellow and then run through some of your other Pikmin to attempt to collect enough to fight him. And even then, the window to attack feels really small. Too early and your Pikmin get hit in the explosion, too late and Bullblax is already back up. Better scurry back to your yellows to repeat the process. It's just annoying to me personally, which is a bummer because the only thing in this game I don't really like. However, it's also only for the best ending, not to successfully beat the game. So by merit of it being optional, it could be a lot worse. Regardless, after enough work, Bullblax falls and you can reclaim the final ship part, Olimar's entire life savings. Maybe this whole overthrowing a tyrant thing wasn't quite so noble after all. But after a couple of weeks of hard work, we finally did it. The dolphin is standing tall and fully repaired. This ending is really nice, as Olimar gives one last bit of thanks to his new friends before entering the ship, and the Pikmin showing that in their time working with him, they came to learn how to take care of themselves too. With one last look back at the planet below, all the onions coming to bid him, "Hey, wait a minute, who are all you people? Orange? Gray? Green? What's next, purple?" Anyways, Olimar finally gets to embark on the best journey he's had in a moment, the ride back home. This ending is so comforting to me, and for getting every part we even get rewarded with a sizzle reel of all the enemies. Although, oddly, this entire thing is just filled to the brim with beta assets that show some very bizarre things, like treasures just chilling in the middle of nowhere, or enemies in places they never are in-game. It does add to its charm though. I also love that this ending is called the happy end. Like, this isn't even the only ending where you get to leave. That piggy bank must have been loaded. The game has 3 endings. The one I got is the best one, but there's also a pretty bland ending for getting all the mandatory ship parts, of which there's 25. Now, why are these ones optional, but something like the Extraordinary Bolt is mandatory despite most likely doing nothing? Well, who are you, a rocket scientist? You don't know what makes it so extraordinary. It's a secret, you stupid son of a bitch. There's also a bad ending for if you just fail to collect the mandatory parts in time, where Olimar dies and the Pikmin bring him to the Onion, where he ends up resuscitated as a Pikmin-like creature? What were the Pikmin even thinking doing this? He's gonna be stuck there now. God, I need that game. Let's see, what else do we have? There's the challenge mode? Didn't really bother with this one. It's just a high score challenge where you attempt to amass as many Pikmin as possible in each of the 5 areas. It's the weakest of the extra modes in the series, although I also am hard pressed to really act like this game mode impacts my feelings about Pikmin 1 at all. I tried to play it, booted up Impact Site, had a breadbug kill one of my Pikmin, and called it quits because I remembered immediately that I just don't care for challenge mode. Maybe next game. If it isn't clear yet, I love Pikmin, and I love Pikmin 1. Very few series hit the ground running like Pikmin did. So much about the series starts out excellent, which makes it an incredibly easy recommendation. It's not the longest game, only about 5 hours or so, maybe an hour more or less depending on your skill level, but it's such an engrossing romp that I am begging you to try if you haven't already. And the best part? It's very easy to do so. The game initially released on the GameCube, but there hasn't been a single generation since where it's been hard to get your hands on it. Pikmin 1 was re-released on the Wii as a part of the New Play Control series, with widescreen and a lot of Pikmin 2 quality of life additions, plus the incredible pointer controls that are by far the best way to control the entire series. That version was then released in the Wii U's eShop, and of course can be played through the Wii menu if you just have the game physically. And of course, there's now the Switch ports of 1 and 2. I haven't played these myself yet, but from what I can tell, it maintains all the benefits of the Wii ports, but in HD and available for $30. Or $50 if you get 2 with it. It's easily still worth $30, and I can recommend any version of this game with no hesitation. Although I'm obviously going to tell you that for simplicity's sake, buy the Switch port. I hope that you can see the same amazing game I do. Maybe one day you'll come to celebrate Pikmis with me. What a nice time that was. I'm sure that someone out there had to notice the Pikmis cheer I've got going on right now. But you know, even if they don't, I'll be okay. Pikmis isn't just about the excitement of a new Pikmin game, it's a time to remember what made Pikmin so magical to begin with. And you know, I feel like I was really able to do just that tonight. Maybe Ola Claus won't come. That's okay, because even if he forgets me again and I don't get to play Pikmin 4 on the 21st, there's still a couple of great games left to enjoy in the meantime. And I can always just go buy it myself. I may be stranded, but what do I look like, broke? Oh, I better go check and see if Hyder needs any help with decorations still. And I gotta get dinner started. We're having fried mamuta. I heard somewhere that it tastes like chicken. Until next time, Merry Pikmis to all, and to all a good end of day. Catch you next time, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't yet, click the subscribe button to see the next AxelPort video as soon as it releases. And in the meantime, have you ever wanted to hear about a lousy skateboarding game from the mid-2000s for children? No? Ah, well that's too bad, because I got a video on just that for you right there on backyard skateboarding. Anyways, I've got work to do on the next video, but until then, I'll see you next time.